ainsi like forum.
A little bit too faint, and I hope that will improve. Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, chairperson of the AU Commission, ministers, commissioners, esteemed participants, I now call this 34th Ordinary Assembly of Heads of State and Government to order. As we gather here today, we are mindful of the devastating impact of COVID-19 on both our lives as well as livelihood people, because it extremely changed how we conduct business. We hold the 34th Ordinary Session virtually because of COVID-19. The world is adjusting to the new way of conducting multi-diplomacy. Our union is not left behind as we hosted our two back-to-back virtual extraordinary summits with success in September. Allow me, Your Excellencies, to request the Assembly observe a moment of silence in remembrance of all the departed souls who succumbed across many countries to COVID-19. May their souls rest. Let us observe a moment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We may be seated. I now hand over to African Union Commission Chief of Protocol to announce the order of proceeding of the opening ceremony.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur Mala, président de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Monsieur l'État, Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Excellence, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Excellence, Monsieur le Vice-président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs les présidents des Unions africaines, Mesdames et Messieurs les secrétaires exécutifs DER, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués participants, nous sommes réunis ce jour pour les travaux de la 34e session ordinaire de la conférence de l'Union. Nous remercions Dieu pour son cérémonie d'ouverture que j'ai l'honneur de décliner sera une de bienvenue d'ouverture. Président de l'Union et de la Commission. Cérémonie de passation de témoins entre les présidents entrants et sortants de l'Union et le lancement du thème de l'Union africaine pour l'année 2020. Pour le moment, je voudrais vous prier de bien vouloir vous tenir debout quelques instants de l'hymne de l'Union africaine. L'honneur me revient à présent d'inviter le président Cyril Ramaphosa, président en exercice de l'Union africaine.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, as state government, members of the African Union Bureau, chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellencies, members of the Council, heads of AU Auckland, heads of regional economic community, commissioners of AU Commission, former heads of state government, distinguished guests, fellow Africans. I call this meeting of 34th Ordinary Session of the Union Assembly of Heads of State Government. Allow me to begin by thanking you all for attending the virtual meeting of the Assembly. We are holding this 34th Ordinary Session virtual meeting instead of a physical gathering, following a decision of the AU Bureau at its meeting of 30th January, on which also attended by the chairs of regional economic community. This decision was based on an assessment by the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The risk of holding a physical gathering this day, the rate of infection. As a continent, as a global community, we are engaged in an unprecedented struggle against COVID-19. This disease has caused great suffering and across our country. It's not only a severe health emergency, it is also a grave economic and social crisis. It has deepened global inequality and threatens to setback progress towards the achievement of our sustainable development goals. Despite the upheaval caused by this disease, our response as a continent has been about partnership, resilience, innovation, and the sharing of strategies, experience, and resources across the continent. The people of this continent have shown themselves to be resourceful and agile. Significantly, this pandemic has demonstrated the importance and the value of our continental body, the African Union. It is through the structures of the AU that we will be able to drive a collective response to this crisis, marshalling resources for the benefit of all our people, as well as striving to ensure that no country on our African continent is left behind. As we prepare for the massive task of vaccinating our populations against COVID-19, we are looking to the AU and its partners to provide the assistance and the support that we need. Even as we have fought a monumental struggle against this disease, our continental body, the African Union, has brought into existence the African Continental Free Trade Area. not yet defeated, and that there will be difficult times that lie ahead. But we draw our encouragement from the great opportunities that the AFCFTA presents for the growth, development, and prosperity of our continent. We also draw encouragement we've once again reaffirmed through our actions our commitment to the principles of unity and solidarity. It is this commitment that has enabled us to travel this far, and it is this commitment which will enable us to travel further towards a peaceful, just, and prosperous future. With these words, I once again welcome you all to this esteemed meeting and hope that we will have productive deliberations and take decisions that will take our continent even further. I thank you.
Monsieur le Président, au nom de la président de son Excellence, Monsieur Moussa Faki Mahamat, président de la
Statement.
Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, Chairman of the African Union, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Chairperson of the Commission, Commissioners, Chief Executive of the Regional Economic Communities, ladies and gentlemen. The 34th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the African Union is being held today in a very special context. First, there is COVID-19 pandemic,
which has had an unprecedented impact on the normal functioning of all the organs of the Union, which forces us to this virtual meeting far from the warmth of the physical meeting to which we are used. Then, the session of the Assembly coincides with the end of the 4-year term of this Commission. This is an opportunity for me to express to all the African states and leaders my grateful thanks for the support and care I have constantly received throughout my mission. It is a unique experience that I have lived alongside you and which has strengthened my determination to make the African Union, with your support, the instrument par excellence of integration, peace and development of the continent. Here, I would like to pay special tribute to all the head of state, champions of their respective themes, on whom I would have liked to mention for the valuable contributions they have made to our collective endeavor. Excellencies, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government,
Mesdames et Messieurs,
ladies and gentlemen,
l'année 2020
the year 2020 will go down in history as the one that witnessed the spread of this pandemic, coronavirus, whose health, socio-economic and political consequences remain yet to be assessed as the pandemic continues to wreak havoc.
Bien entendu,
Of course, our continent has not escaped this tragedy, even if its negative effects have been countered and indeed contained by the admirable political will of our leaders.
cette volonté s'est exprimée
This will was expressed through the development of a joint strategy,
multiforme
a multifaceted strategy, including the mobilization of public authorities, the private sector, and the international community to support the Africa in the face of this terrible pandemic. The unity of action and solidarity among African states has been admirable and demonstrates our resilience and our ability to face adversity together.
que nous avons engagé
In our fight against this pandemic,
son Excellence
His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, Chairman of the Union, has demonstrated exceptional leadership.
s'est manifesté par
This leadership was manifested through a series of innovative initiatives
des médicaments,
articulated in the acquisition of medicine and equipment,
question de la
the treatment of the thorny issue of the debt of Africa, and the imperative need of acquiring vaccines against COVID-19. President Ramaphosa has thus distinguished himself
efficace
by showing deep concern about the effective action which makes him the indisputable African Union in the fight against COVID-19.
coordination
Collaboration and coordination backed by the sharing of responsibilities anchored in the principle of subsidiarity have enabled our continent to resist to the virulence of COVID-19.
saluer les
This is the moment for me to commend the appropriate organs of the Union, which through Africa CDC make a remarkable contribution to our fight against this scourge.
pas induits par
The upheavals induced by COVID-19 have not diverted and digressed us from the priority issues of our Union, in particular regional integration, issues of peace and security, governance and development.
création de la zone de libre
The establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area, one of the flagship projects of our organization, and its implementation on 1 January this year is a strong vector for the integration of our continent.
de la raison de
This integration is the very raison d'être of our organization.
nous savons que la
We know
cette zone de libre échange
that with the development of this free trade area, and the success of this free trade area depends on the free movement of people and goods, the establishment of infrastructures, and the absence of any form of intra or interstate violence. The ambitious project, Silencing the Guns, an important strategic objective, lies at the very heart of our action for peace and security. The correlation between the issues of peace and security with economic exchanges, the right of establishment, the construction of infrastructures, the individual and collective development of citizens, the involvement of young people and women in socio-economic development has assumed here a predominant place. Terrorism, community conflicts, violent extremism, violent election-related crises, transnational crime, and are the real gaping wounds of Africa which prevent it from moving forward. We must put an end to these tragedies which stick to the continent and tarnish its image in order to rekindle the hope of Africans and to build the Africa we want. All my action over the past 4 years has been guided by the concern about strengthening our union, both in its internal structures and in its presence on the international scene. Internally, the institutional reform aims at boosting the effectiveness of the Commission to make it the engine of change. It is also intended to be an adequate response to put an end to the dysfunctions and the shortcomings that have marked the life of the Union. At the international level, we have endeavored to elevate the rank and the voice of Africa through the establishment of fruitful strategic partnerships, respectful of our values and taking into account our interests. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this session of the Assembly will have the historical particularity of electing the leadership of the restructured Commission and thus overall the new Commission will have to complete the reform, fulfill without delay the pressing expectations of the states and quickly settle down to execute the flagship projects of Agenda 2063. If there is one sector that is particularly close to my heart and on which I admit the term that is ending has not given the prominence it deserves, it is very much culture. Africa has a vast cultural and artistic heritage, which because for a long time it has been ignored or buried under the yoke of colonization, has not contributed as it should to the shaping of the African personality. It is to place the theme back at the center of building an African conscience and an African identity that the African Union has decided to dedicate the year 2021 to arts, culture and heritage, labors for building the Africa we want. The new Commission, therefore, faces an immense and exalting challenge. The cultural and artistic wealth of Africa has a common unifying base, capable of galvanizing the common wills of African peoples, those of the continent as well as those of the diaspora. I thank you for your kind attention. We thank the chairperson of the Commission. I was saying earlier on that we had three statements at the opening ceremony. Then we have the second phase, that is the handing over ceremony, that is, which comprises the presentation of the incoming bureau,
also to advance the economic empowerment of women, and finally to support good governance and democracy. Yet within a matter of weeks, the coronavirus pandemic forced us to urgently reprioritize both our programs of action and the deployment of our resources. Our most immediate and pressing concern was to manage the impact of the pandemic on the people of our continent. We worked with urgency to develop the Africa Joint Continental Strategy for COVID-19 and have effectively implemented it through the various structures of the AU. We have been ably led by the AU Bureau, which has been at the forefront of coordinating the responses by our member states. As part of our continental response, the Bureau appointed 6 prominent and distinguished Africans as special envoys to mobilize financial resources to support our national health responses and assist in the recovery of our economies. These special envoys are Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala of Nigeria, Dr. Donald Kaberuka of Rwanda, Dr. Ben Kalfa Abderrahmane of Algeria, Mr. Trevor Manuel of South Africa, Mr. Tijan Tiam of Cote d'Ivoire, and Professor Mbaya Kakwenda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. These outstanding envoys have held extensive engagements with a number of important institutions in the world, the G20, the G7, as well as multilateral institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund to mobilize support for middle and lower income countries to mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic through debt relief, the cancellation of debt, the deferment of debt payments, as well as the provision of new funding. Thanks to these and other efforts, the IMF and the World Bank have deployed significant financial resources for the COVID-19 response on our continent. Yet our work is not yet done. Access to concessional finance will remain crucial as countries rebuild their economies. An injection of fresh resources by the IMF through reallocating and issuing new special drawing rights with a bias towards the developing world will correct the glaring inequality in fiscal stimulus measures between advanced economies and the rest of the world. As the African continent, we established a COVID-19 response fund to raise resources for the continental response. Significantly, it was our own member states that made the first contributions towards the capitalization of the fund. In responding to the pandemic, we've been at the forefront of innovation. We established the groundbreaking Africa Medical Supplies Platform to assist AU member states to access affordable medical supplies and equipment. This effort was led by another special envoy, Mr. Strive Masiyiwa of Zimbabwe, who took on the weighty responsibility to to coordinate the private sector effort to procure critical personal protective equipment and other essential supplies to combat COVID-19. In establishing this platform, we have given practical meaning to the mantra we often repeat, that we are committed to developing African solutions to African problems. We have harnessed the excellence that exists on our own continent before searching for expertise beyond our shores. Our response to COVID-19 has been driven, coordinated and capacitated by our own scientists and medical experts, mainly located within the Africa Centers for Disease and Control and Prevention. And now it is our own vaccine acquisition task team that is leading our efforts in the next frontier of the pandemic to acquire vaccines for the people of our continent. As we will report later, the task team has done outstanding work in both securing substantial quantities of COVID-19 vaccines and mobilizing financing so that all African countries can access vaccines for their people. We have stood firm on the principle that the global fight to contain the pandemic must not and cannot leave any of the countries on our continent behind. We have affirmed on all international platforms and in every multilateral engagement that Africa stands and works as one. This is a principle on which we have been consistent, not just with regards to equitable access to medical supplies and vaccines, but also with regards to financial support and debt relief arrangements for vulnerable countries. Despite the enormous impediments presented by the pandemic, our continent is today firmly on the road to economic integration. On the 1st of January 2021, the African Continental Free Trade Area came into operation, realizing the vision of the founders of our continental body and the economic integration and development. And through the Johannesburg Declaration, the AFCFTA came into being. As we work to rebuild our national economies in the wake of the pandemic, this continental free trade area will be instrumental in driving trade, investment, job creation, business development on the continent through increased manufacturing and the industrialization of our continent. It will enable our recovery to be all the faster and stronger. Ours is an African Union that is practically working towards greater peace and security. Conflict and war on the continent remains a grave threat to our developmental aspirations. We know too well that silencing the guns in Africa is a long and arduous process. We have agreed to extend the implementation of the AU Master Roadmap of practical steps for silencing the guns in Africa for a period of 10 years, from 2020 to 2030. We have further agreed that there must be periodic reviews every 2 years of our implementation of this objective. Last year, we began the new decade for women's economic and financial inclusion, which states our commitment to scale up actions for gender inclusion towards sustainable development. We said that we would leverage Africa's industrialization under the African Continental Free Trade Area to advance women's financial and economic inclusion. During the extraordinary summit of the AFCFTA held in December 2020, we highlighted the need for trade facilitation to support Africa's businesswomen as well as entrepreneurs. Today, we present to member states a proposed summit decision on the program of action on African women in trade. This will be underpinned by a Women in Trade monitoring platform, which will enable state parties to annually report on progress made to strengthen women's participation in the free trade area. South Africa strongly supports the Women, Gender and Development Directorate of the AU in its call for an action plan to increase women's access to financial services. This includes tailor-made financial products for women with reliable means to save, to access, to transfer, and to borrow money. As the AU, we should also develop a decade action plan to help member states determine and implement key flagship activities towards women's economic empowerment. We all remain concerned at the high levels of violence against women and children on our continent. Therefore, we request the Assembly to adopt a decision to develop a convention of ending violence against women and children that will amplify our commitment to promote, to protect, and to fulfill women's as well as girls' rights. To also take a decision to adopt a decision to convene a women-led peace forum attended by heads of state and government, and to implement the decisions of the Peace and Security Council to institutionalize the office of the Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. To also adopt a decision to establish a heads of state level circle of champions that can champion and drive the necessary change. We also call on member states to ratify the International Labour Organization Convention 190 on eliminating violence and harassment in the world of work. We'd like to commend Namibia for leading in this regard. It is our firm belief that the economic empowerment and emancipation of women will go a long way in ending the scourge of violence against women and girls on our continent. The African Union must be unequivocal that all human beings, regardless of sex and gender, are both equal. At the founding conference of the OAU, one of Africa's most celebrated sons, Kwame Nkrumah, said, open quotes, "There is no time to waste. We must unite now or perish. No sporadic act, no pious resolution can resolve our present problems. Nothing will be of avail except the united act of a united Africa," close quotes. Indeed, Your Excellencies, there is no time to waste. if we are to overcome this pandemic and address all the challenges that our continent faces, we must forge meaningful partnerships and pursue greater cooperation. We must continue to implement the institutional reforms necessary for the African Union to become a professional and self-sustaining organization. As we hand over, as South Africa, the baton to the Democratic Republic of Congo, we are determined to continue working with President Tshisekedi to ensure that Africa becomes an integrated continent that is politically united, based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of African Renaissance. I would like to extend my gratitude to the chairman of the AU Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Mahamat, and the way that he and I have worked during the course of this year. It has been nothing but outstanding and exemplary and cooperative. I'd also like to thank members of the Bureau and also the members, the regional economic communities, the AU Commission, the Africa CDC, led by Dr. John Nkengasong, who has been a shining star and a great leader in our fight against COVID-19. I would also like to thank the various envoys that we appointed to work with us, both to meet and address the COVID-19 challenge, as well as the envoys we are appointed to help us to silence the guns on our continent. I'd also like to thank the international community, without whose support the chairship of the AU for 2020 would have been far more daunting as a mission. I also want to thank the heads of the various AU institutions, as well as the staff of the AU Commission, for all the support that they gave us during this period. And Your Excellencies, it has been a joy to serve alongside all of you during this period. And as I hand over to His Excellency President Felix Tshisekedi, I hand over with joy, knowing that the work that I took over from President Al-Sisi will indeed be continued under the leadership of President Tshisekedi. I thank you. Thank you very much. What do I? Oh, we changed the flag now. What do I do? When do I hand over?
Do you want?
Nous vous remercions, Monsieur le Président, tout en vous souhaitant
When do we hand over the flag? Is there a ceremony?
There's no ceremony. You're supposed to say
handing over first. The chairperson of the commission is the standing for the outcome of the chairperson.
It is now my pleasure to symbolically hand over the flag of our union to President Tshisekedi and wish him the very best as he takes on this task of leading our union. Congratulations, President Tshisekedi, and I now hand over the flag as well as the gavel to you as our new chairperson of the AU. Thank you very much. Here is the flag. Thank you. They now call on him to speak.
Thank you very much. Mr. Senior President of South Africa, thank you for handing over the chairmanship to me, which I received with a lot of pleasure. I know that you did a lot of work, and I hope I'll be able to rise to the challenge. But I promise you, that I'm going to work as hard as I can to step into
les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Monsieur le secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur le Président,
Chairperson of the African Commission, distinguished ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor that all the African countries actually did to represent the Democratic Republic of Congo through my humble self by passing over the chairmanship of our continental organization to our country. The theme of the current and mandate of this is arts, culture, and heritage. Movements for building Africa we want. Yes, we want to build in Africa with the active and massive participation of women and youth who constitute the driving force of an inclusive and sustainable development. I'm cognizant of the immense task that I do accept with all humility. I appreciate the valuable support of all the members of the building, with the Commission always standing ready to lend a helping hand. I want to strongly thank my predecessor, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who under very difficult conditions due to the COVID-19 pandemic managed to mobilize all the efforts of the continent and partners to rise to the challenge posed by COVID-19 pandemic. And so I want him to be the champion of the vaccination program and our struggle against COVID-19 pandemic. I want to sincerely and warmly thank Her Excellency Madam Sahle-Work Zewde, President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and His Excellency Mr. Abiy Ahmed for the warm welcome that the people of Ethiopia have never stopped to reserve to member states during our meetings at headquarters here in Addis Ababa. I also avail myself of this opportunity to sincerely thank Mr. Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union, who is playing host in this hallowed premises of the headquarters of the African Union. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a singular privilege for the Democratic Republic of Congo, who is taking over the baton today as the chairman of the African Union, at a symbolic but highly significant moment when we were marking the 60 years after the death of a great son of Congo, Africa, Mr. Patrice Emery. Mr. Lumumba had faith in the great destiny of Africa. and he did not hesitate to organize in August 1968 Kinshasa at the time conflict revealed the last Congress of the history of the great Pan-Africanist movement. It started June 1960, just before his tragic death. He declared, and I quote, "Africa is going to write its own history, and it will go from the north to the southernmost tip of the continent, a history of glory and dignity." End quote. It is at the foundation of the memory of all Pan-Africans that I intend to build this year, that is, a continental organization at the service of its people. This vision, which is actually seen in the first part of the Pan-African, this is going to have 9 pillars, which is well detailed in my plan of action. Arts, culture, and heritage constitutes the basis of African renaissance and affords us the opportunity to look back at our roots. The roots, which is the cradle of inventions, innovations, and a way of actually ensuring its own survival. Culture is, like Leopold Sedar Senghor used to say, it is at the beginning and the end of everything, because it covers every aspect of human life. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we take over as chairperson of the African Union, our continent is facing a major challenge, that is, the challenge of science independence. In the Sahel region, the sons and daughters of Africa in that area are losing their lives to terrorism and barbaric. In the Central African Republic, the peace and stability of the elected institutions are being challenged by rebels and armed groups. In the eastern part of my own country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, there is, like people always said, there is insecurity caused by local armed groups and terrorism, foreign terrorist movements, mainly the ADF-NTA. Similar events you can see in the Southern African region, a region that is always known for its stability and peace. And yet today, we see terrorism taking roots in the northern part of Mozambique. Ladies and gentlemen, the continental organization at the service of its people is one that should be built on the integration of the continent. And we want to actually salute the progress made in the ratification of the continental fusion area. We started trading in January 2021 under the leadership of President Mahamadou Issoufou. We thank him sincerely for the key role he played in the AFCFTA. Yes, we started trading in January 2021. Within the AFCFTA is actually an act of economic independence for the continent. But however, we still have challenges considering the differences in the industrial development of our countries. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, nobody saw the COVID-19 pandemic coming. It actually caught the entire humanity off guard and led to the loss of lives and restricted movement of persons and even upset our economies. Although Africa was relatively less affected by the pandemic, our continent was not spared. And so we want to welcome and find the ingenuity and resilience of our continent as we stood up to fight the pandemic. Thanks to former previous experiences in times of adversity and our ability to adapt, we should not lose hope and we should not even give in, because we should bear in mind that there are other pathologies that still continue to loom over our heads, and sometimes disease pathogens are even more dangerous, like malaria and HIV/AIDS. And so we should put our efforts together and work with our international partners to face all these major scourges. It is important that our organization should strengthen the African Centers for Disease Control, Africa CDC, for it to be able to meet challenges, health challenges, navigate these challenges as a specialized institution of the African Union. Ladies and gentlemen, in synergy with regional economic communities, we're going to pull our efforts together to advance peace and security, pursue the operationalization of the AFCFTA, promote culture, arts, and African heritage, and also combat climate change, expedite integration projects, among which we have the construction of the Great Eagle Dam, consolidate the initiatives of the African Union in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic and in the prevention of other diseases. Learning from the lessons of the pandemic, over and above strengthening our health systems, this is the time for us now or never to invest even more in education and scientific research. It is in the strategic interest of each member state to earmark a huge part of its budget to the development of human capital, which is our greatest resource, the only resource that we can effectively mobilize to resolve African-specific problems and to overcome global challenges. Based on my vision of a continental organization at the service of the African people, I am going to take away this organization with your support and help. I will take this organization away from meeting rooms, away from our computers and the secretariat. I intend to take this organization into classrooms, into refugee camps, into marketplaces in our cities, and of course, into our fields and farms in our villages. Ladies and gentlemen, promoting the Pan-African community conscious of its history, its artistic potential, and the value of its cultural heritage is not and should not be an option, but a duty. We have to achieve this goal together throughout this year by relying on the 9 pillars which constitute our strategic vision. This is the price, and I'm persuaded that this is the price that we have to pay to actually meet the goals of Agenda 2063, which will ensure prosperity, grounded in inclusive growth and sustainable development, peace, security, and full equality between men and women in every sector of human life. In conclusion, my dear brothers and sisters, let us continue to weave year after year the mat of African integration. And like Joseph Kizerbo once said, Africa is not going to be developed by outsiders. Africa will be developed by itself and its own people. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this opening ceremony. And now we have the launch of the theme for the year 2021, and which will be done by President Tshisekedi Tshilombo, and I have the honor to give him back the floor. Majesty, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to launch the theme for the year 2021, and to this end, thank you, Excellency Mali, as the champion and leader of this theme, wants to take the floor.
La République du Mali, s'il vous plaît.
Republic of Mali, you have the floor. Mr. President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, current chairman of the African Union, Excellencies, heads of state and government, chairperson of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, I have the great honor to read out the message of the President, the head of